Good morning. My name is Maria Cadbury from Persollo, a social e-commerce and AI-powered influencer marketing analytics platform. You can run a one-click checkout on your social influencer marketing activity, run an influencer affiliates campaign, and enjoy live AI-powered social media post analyzer. Thank you for joining me this morning, our second in a series of influencer marketing of the moment webinars. I'm genuinely excited about today's incredible content and speakers. Over the last 6 weeks, the marketing and advertising world as we know it has changed. We are looking at how brands are leading the charge and influencing us by how they have reacted to COVID-19, while we also look at the changing role of influencers who are playing a key role in driving e-commerce as they curate compelling content from their homes. We're lucky enough to have Lauren Spearman from Made.com in the webinar, so we can ask her directly how they pivoted to what we now see Made.com as an altruistic brand. Hashtag "We're in this together" is one of the trending hashtags of the COVID-19 moment that brands are adopting along with you and I as we post on Instagram, Twitter and TikTok. Camper, the luxury shoe brand, posted, because medical professionals have been throwing away pairs of their own shoes due to COVID-19 decontamination process. We've donated shoes to local hospitals in Mallorca. Likewise, Kirk Geiger here in the UK has pledged to give up 5 million worth of shoes. Across the board, the tremendous support from luxury and high street brands has been incredible to read as they've donated and changed their factory strategy to create for the hospital workers. Armani, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Acqua di Parma, Hugo Boss, H&M, Burberry, the list goes on of brands donating or creating shoes, medical wear. And Ralph Lauren donated 10 million to those families affected by COVID-19. Gucci is also utilising their social following. With 40 million followers on Instagram alone, they run a campaign to its worldwide community to donate to the Solidarity Response Fund for the WHO, which will be matched by Facebook. Now, what's interesting for me from a statistical perspective is 63% of people trust influencers over brands. That said, coming from a position of social purpose, Gucci in this instance, I believe, is a brand who influences. Since quarantine, internet traffic is up 20% and video streaming is up 12%, and even smart speakers usage is up 44% year on year. The outpouring of memes and videos after lockdown was both astonishing in numbers and truly welcome and so very entertaining. And actually, on that note, I'm very much looking forward to our panel discussion with Victoria Eames, the content creator, who created the I Will Survive entertainment goal video, who I'm sure I've referenced in my last webinar, and I'm pretty sure in this panel we'll laugh and we'll also learn how influencers remain true to their followers, work with brands and with values that align with theirs, and lots of more. Bran Fishkin is the CEO and co-founder of SEO Moz, a leader in the field of search engine optimization tools, resource and community, who recently talked about read the room. Now, and this is where we're going to talk about messaging. We don't need marketing, in his words, we don't need marketing, content, advertising or messaging of any kind that's ignorant or unsympathetic. He talks about the COVID-19 four swing states. State 1, read only COVID content. State 2, my mental health is suffering. State 3, watch only funny memes. State 4, this feels wrong, people are suffering. I don't know about you, but I spend time in each of these states. His advice to marketers is to spend it this time, but also, which I wholeheartedly agree with, to read the room, and we'll look at messaging next. But first, follow up me afterwards if you'd like me to send you the article of the swing states of COVID-19 chart. It really resonates with me. So in a few of our panels, we'll discuss messaging. At the beginning of lockdown, how marketers paused, or in some cases stopped advertising, what felt like a day later produced content in safe hands and protecting the NHS. Weeks into our new normal, we're seeing a change in messaging to promoting food and home cooking. We have examples of brands doing interesting tactical work, but also brands using advertising with the same messages. So they continue to be relevant, such as FMCGs. What's been incredible to see is just how powerful influencer marketing has been to mobilize and engage at a phenomenal rate. Influencers continue to drive sales. They promote wonderful content from their homes, and we use shoppable tags and new technologies like one-click checkout, which you can get from Persollo. Today, we'll explore how a number of agencies use technology, effectiveness of distribution, omnichannel, social commerce, and recommendation to execute an influencer marketing behaviour strategy. I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm genuinely excited about yet another stellar lineup for today's webinar. Let me take you through our absolute compelling content-packed agenda. So bear with me while I share. And I just present this. Great. So now I'm really excited about our fireside with Victoria Eames. And here we're going to look at entertainment goal in the relationship with brands. And we've got the fantastic Ellie Edwards, who's the co-founder of the Advisory Collective, taking us through. Next, we're going on to Scott Gitcham, the independent influencer marketing consultant. I see Scott very much as the authoritative voice on the influencer marketing space, and he very much writes at the moment. And he's going to take us through social media platforms in the race to e-commerce and influencer marketing. We'll then have a short break, and then we'll kick off with Daphs, who's the global lead of Inca, and Inca is Group M, and Group M is the largest media conglomerate, and Group M's influencer marketing division. And we're going to be talking about maximising the return on content investment. Then we have Elliot Willis, who was MD of the Hook Lab, and we're going to congratulate him actually because he's been part of building the Hook Lab, which has been sold to Brave Bison, and he's coming to join us today with his new clients and as a strategic advisor. And he's going to take us through a performance strategy using strategic branded content and influencers. Then we'll have another fireside, and we're going to have two people on it. Ollie Lewis, the MD of The Fifth. The Fifth is News UK's influencer marketing agency, and Rachel Clay, head of social media and influencer marketing Matter of Phone. And here we're going to talk about the uptake of e-commerce strategies and influencers and new technology, because some really meaty stuff coming out of all of these conversations. And then we're going to have Lauren Spearman from Mail.com. So really looking forward to asking her a number of questions, and how shifting focus to support at speed, which will be really great. So without much ado, we're going to kick in and go straight to Ellie and Victoria. And there was a little bit with the recording, so we're just going to miss a minute of theirs and straight into their conversation. Thank you very much.
Products of just having a bit of fun, and then look, it's actually sold some products as well. So
that's great. And how about other channels? Because I know Instagram is your main channel. Are you, since lockdown, have you been experimenting with other channels in terms of putting out content and engagement? What's it been like on other platforms?
So I have only ever had Instagram, but when the I Will Survive video started to kick off and started going viral, I just signed up to Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and TikTok, and I had not used any of those before, and I find, it's so much. It's like, oh my god, I've now got 5 flipping.
Because when I met you, you weren't on Twitter, were you, before?
No, I wasn't on Twitter, and but it got shared so much on Twitter. It seemed it never made sense to me to have it before, but then when that went viral, it was like, okay, actually, I get it now. Lots of people don't just use Instagram. I understand that, but all of those channels grew quite quickly within that period of time that the I Will Survive video was kind of doing the rounds and whatever. And it is very different, but the one thing about all of them I find is that it's just a community, and I think that's a really important part, is to engage with the community on each channel, because people become invested in you as a person, and if you don't give that little bit back, then they lose interest. So you have to keep up the engagement in the community all the time, which I do that on Instagram, and I have a really strong community on Instagram, and I love my Instagram community. And the other thing I tell you, this I've not really had too much trolling, but on the other platforms, oh my god, people are mean. They're so mean. I haven't had that so much, so it's been like a new thing. And also, Ellie, I don't know if this is the right time to talk about this, but dick pics.
You didn't tell me that before. You didn't tell me that when we had our briefing. Really?
Yeah, Facebook is full of perverts. Where do we go from here?
Where do we go from there? Right, let's talk about I Will Survive, because maybe it's seeing you in your shiny leotard that's got those dick pics going. But
I know.
I Will Survive. I mean, I got sent it, as you say, this absolutely blew up and went, viral. I think, wasn't it talked about on the BBC? I saw there's something in The Guardian. Talk to me about the inspiration behind it and where that's going.
So I suppose the inspiration behind it was just, that's kind of what I do now, is make those little music videos. So it was kind of just like another video that I was creating, but obviously everything that was going on, and I had the idea just as the lockdown was announced, and we'd already been in quarantine because everyone was sick in the house, so we'd already been in the house for like, I don't know, 10 days, so I was going a bit mental anyway. And it just felt like, well, this is exactly what it is, isn't it? It's just then the song just came really naturally. But it was just such a surreal experience. That's never happened to me before. And it went so crazy. Like, it was all over the place. And a lot of the time it was in places where it wasn't credited to me, which was really fun. But I think that's just part of this game, is that happens sometimes. And I wasn't savvy enough to put a watermark on it or anything like that. But off the back of it, yeah, it's been I think it's been in like 4 national papers. It's been on the One Show.
Fantastic.
One Show this morning, and then it's been shown internationally as well on TV. I've had lots of my followers like sending me clips of it on German TV, on Australian TV. It's crazy. Like, it was. I wasn't prepared at all for what happens.
Yeah.
And then I guess this is the nicest thing, or the thing that I'm most proud of about it, is that it's now been selected to go in the BFI are creating a video archive of COVID and people's reaction to the lockdown. And yeah, it's been selected that. So I feel so honoured to be a part of that, because I'm a bit of a film nerd. So it's like a real honour. And then I don't know what's going to happen now, I suppose. I think it's probably just put my huge clam in front of loads of brands. I want a piece of that action. I'm not sure. We'll see. I don't really feel like much has happened work-wise off the back of it yet. Maybe one. I don't really care. It made my account go crazy. I think I got like 22,000 followers in the space of 4 days on Instagram. It's mad. Yeah.
And as you say, I think something like that. It goes beyond getting a brand to work with you. It's actually it's that national kind of gathering that that national spirit, because everybody, men, women, children, everyone kind of saw it, loved it, related to it, and it just is a real feel good moment, and that's what it's about as well, isn't it, for you and your job?
Yeah, definitely, and that's what I hope that my feed is really. I'm just trying to champion women for one, and just making us all a little bit less alone. That's sort of my main purpose.
Cool. So what's next? You've got Betty Crocker, which you just filmed. What else have you got in the pipeline? Anything you can talk about or allude to in terms of what you're up to?
I'm just churning out the videos. So I've got a new one coming out that I've been working on for the last couple of days, and actually this is the first time. So I've done a lot of rewriting songs that would exist, but I've been working with some musicians, and we've actually written an original song.
Oh, wow.
I'm so excited about, because it's brilliant. For one, they've just done such an amazing job, but it's got like a Mary Poppins vibe, so I'm really excited. I haven't filmed it yet, just literally written the lyrics, and I'm just taking it week by week, to be honest, because I can't really deal with it otherwise. I'm just like, let's just get through this week, let's just make something fun, do something fun this week, and then next week is another week. So yeah, that's all I'm doing.
That makes complete sense. Somebody's asked, just looking at more questions, what is the difference between a content creator and an influencer?
Oh God. Can I swear? No, I'm joking. I would say that a content creator is much more involved in the process of whatever media it is that they're putting out there, and have probably a bit more creative license, I suppose, if we're putting out there. Whereas an influencer is just somebody that, I mean, this is my opinion, but someone that just promotes products, really. I think that's it. I don't know. I just don't like the word. It's got negative connotations.
That's the thing, it did, didn't it? In terms of, it was interesting because when we spoke, I think it was in February when we were at Future Brands and we were talking then, and influencer had the term had a lot of negative kind of connotations. But since lockdown, it's so interesting because you've got your ordinary people creating content and ordinary people now, you know, doing streams, whatever. So I think, you know, the landscape's just shifted dramatically, hasn't it? So
yeah, it's still a weird one. If people ask me what I do, if I say influencer, they understand what that is, but then like, oh. Okay. But if I say I'm a content creator, they're like, what the hell does that mean? So yeah, it's a strange one. I don't know. I need to just find my own word for what I do. I'm a fanny advocate. That's why.
Disappointed. I knew we'd get swearing, but I think it's true. I think in terms of, you know, bringing it back to brands and how brands work with an influencer content creator, it's so much more interesting when, you know, and as a consumer, you see it when someone's been given creative license, someone generally likes a product, believes in that product, and then does something around that, because that's how you engage with an audience, rather than standing there with something in your hand going, oh yeah, buy this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's back to
it doesn't work. And I see on other people's feeds that do ads as well, like sometimes if they put an ad out that's just completely changes the tone that they normally speak in, it does badly, it just flops. But if they stick to their authenticity, as you say, like who they really are, and they can put that into the ad, then it does so much better. Have a bit of fun with it. I think people just then don't mind so much that it's an ad, because people don't really take issue with it, you know. They're like, not another ad, you know. Which I find interesting. You said that 63% of people will trust an influencer over a brand. But I don't know, when I look at the landscape of what other people are doing, I see people's ads doing really badly, and I find that hard to believe, honestly. Really interesting that they do, I suppose. I suppose it's when you're not, if I mention a product or whatever, a service, whatever, and it's not in the context of an ad, then yeah, for sure, people are like, oh my God, amazing. And, you know, if I can see from swipe ups and links that I share, loads of people go and look at them. And it's just it's a funny thing. It's a really hard relationship to...
It's a fine line, isn't it?
They trust you. Yeah, of course they do trust you. So yeah, you have to not fuck that up. As any normal relationship, you can't fuck it up.
Yeah.
I think that's a
good
really...
way to
I think to your point though, with the 63% of people trusting influencers, it is when they get that right mix, like that, when they manage that fine line where it doesn't feel like they're flogging something. And I do think the industry standards has made it really difficult by putting hashtag ad everywhere, because you're like, it just feels like, oh well, now you're just doing an ad.
I know. Whereas
before they could have, you know, just, you know, introduced a lovely mug and then said where it's from, something quite nice, and there's a hashtag ad, and it loses that value. So I think, you know, more skill to you when you get it right, and I think that's what is really lovely and fun when we watch your content. And I'm super excited about your next video. Well, great. Victoria, thank you so much. Today's been brilliant. I wish we could we had more time.
Next time.
Next time, exactly. Thanks, ladies. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Scott. Hello. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Really good. I'm looking forward to hearing your chat today.
Yeah, well, I'm very much looking forward to talking about it.
Great. And I've already introduced you, and I do think you are the authoritative voice.
Well, I'm going to pick up on that. I don't know if we're live now, but well, that's good news. I mean, it was gushing words. I'm not sure if authoritative voice in the space is accurate, but I'll certainly take it.
Take it. You deserve it. Okay, over to you. Thanks.
Right, well, hopefully everyone can see my screen now. Thank you, Maria. Thank you for inviting me back to speak again on your second influencer marketing panel. Really well received first one. It seems like an age ago, probably isn't an age ago in terms of COVID lockdown time, but it was about a month ago. Thank you for your generous words and the introduction, labelling me the authoritative voice in the space. As I just said, I'm not sure if it's true, but I'll certainly take it. Have it made up into some badges, perhaps. And thank you. Good morning to everyone logged in whilst they're in lockdown. I think it's what are we now? Week 8, is it? Who knows? It's difficult to even know sort of what the day of the week is, let alone what week of the year it is. Anyway, I want to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about the context around social media platforms and why they are starting to chase e-commerce revenue, and how these platforms see influencers playing a vital part in realizing their e-commerce aspirations. So hopefully I can, oh, here we go. Right, so context in e-commerce, looking at the numbers. So our industry, influencer marketing, is said to be worth $10 billion, and I'll heavily caveat that. This is if you're to believe the Media Kicks data, which is used from the Financial Times right the way through to Business Insider, that they put the industry at 10 billion. A second caveat: these forecasts are pre-COVID-19 pandemic, so we you know that they are a direction of travel, but they know what we're living in. You know, to reuse that really hackneyed word, we're living in unprecedented times. But the size of our industry as a benchmark is $10 billion. And social media advertising is worth 102 billion, well, almost 103 billion dollars. Just to give a context of where that 10, you know, is trailing at around about 10% of social media advertising. And again, social media advertising is a fraction of total worldwide advertising. Worldwide advertising is said to be forecast at 638.8, so $639 billion this year. And these are sort of positioning slides, but just to give an idea of where we are, where our industry is fitting in. And what I haven't mentioned is, you know, that the compound interest rate is running at about 50% on influencer marketing. So 5 years ago, our industry was worth about $500 million. Now it's worth 10 billion. So, you know, small but colossal growth. And then if you look at social media advertising, who's making the money, it's not a massive surprise that Zuckerberg is making a massive amount of money. 80% of market share, it goes to Facebook and this Facebook group of companies, so including Instagram as well. So it's no surprise then that So Zuckerberg now has a choice. He can sell more ads, and arguably his platforms are saturated with ads, or he can look to a different category. So he can either grow the existing category or move somewhere else, and that new category, you know, so he needs a new category in which to dominate. And so it's no surprise, I think, that his eyes are firmly focused on e-commerce at the moment, and e-commerce is forecast this year to be worth $2.25 trillion. So we saw our industry 10 billion, social media advertising just over 100 billion, total global advertising 640 billion. And this is all kind of dwarfed in terms of where the social media platforms are looking next, and they're looking towards e-commerce with a $2.25 trillion dollar spend forecast for this year. And again, remembering that it is pre-COVID, these numbers. So that might be his aspiration, but do the figures, or do his audience map over to people buying products online? And again, there's a nice sort of bell curve here. 29% are 18 to 24 year olds. 35% of users on Instagram globally are 25 to 34 years old, and 17% are 35 to 44. So really, you know, the sweet spot here we can see is in the middle, 25 to 34. But also, you know, it's the Gen Zs and the little bit older, the 18 to 24-year-olds that are increasingly, that they've grown up with the social media. They're increasingly turning to social media, yes, to do their research, but also to purchase their products online. So that is the sort of the user profile on Instagram. And if we look a little bit about the profile of the users who are buying products online, the e-commerce ecosystem. And again, we see, you know, again, 31% are aged 25 to 34, very similar to Instagram. 22% of e-commerce purchases are aged 18 to 24, and a quarter, or just under a quarter, at 24%, are aged 35 to 44. So yes, there's a perfect match in terms of age group, age profile. And if we look more at the verticals which are being promoted, the top vertical of sponsored content on Instagram is currently fashion, and the fashion includes clothes, bags, shoes, and other accessories. That is the top. That's the top vertical for e-commerce as well. So it's a perfect match. So that's great for Zuckerberg. That's great for Zuckerberg's aspirations. But where do we fit in? Where do influencers fit in, and influencer marketers fit in? And just to scroll back to the earlier discussion between Ellie and Victoria, I'm calling us influencers and influencer marketers. And I agree with you both. The term influencer has now connotations of it's now a pejorative term. But and you know, it's not the best fit word. You know, influence is an outcome. It's like calling yourself a thought leader or having a T-shirt with "World's Sexiest Lover" printed on it. It's not in your gift to be able to say that you are, you know, an influencer or the world's greatest lover or a thought leader. That is for someone else to give to you. But what we are, or what Victoria and many others are, they're content creators. So they're not just producing content, but they're thinking it through, and they're community guardians as well. They know what their audience likes and what it doesn't care for, and they look at the data, and they look at the sentiment of the comments, and they create more of content for what their audience likes, and obviously removes the content for future content of what it doesn't like. So I prefer the term content creator over influencer, but you know, what we need to do as an industry is create a better lexicon that describes what we do better. And at the moment, we're stuck with influencer. So that's the word that I'm using this morning. So how do influencers fit in with Zuckerberg and others' aspirations to tap into this e-commerce? Well, 57% of people said that they were annoyed, or say they are annoyed, when media and internet content is too advertising driven. And that chimes with what Maria, you've said earlier this morning, and it chimes with what Ellie and Victoria, you've discussed as well. And a stat that you've both, or all three of you, have reused this morning is that 63% of internet or social media users say they trust an influencer over a brand. And so, you know, this is why social media platforms are really sitting up and taking note of influencers or social media creators, content creators. So I'm going to scroll down through my notes, see where we are here. Yeah, so again, according to Global Web Index data, 17% of internet users in the US and the UK say they were inspired to make a purchase from an influencer panel, from Instapost rather, and that 17% increases to 22% when you look at Gen Z. So again, you know, we look back at that bell curve. They are the small but significant element of who is buying content, who is buying products through social media platforms. And social media is beginning to play a crucial role in purchasing, not just in research, just the research phase and the awareness phase and the consideration phase, but right through to the decision making and the purchasing. And consumers value convenience. So, you know, if the ability to do everything in one place helps both the brand and the product engagement. And simplifying the checkout process is one of the most important steps. So if you're already logged in as part of Zuckerberg's ecosystem, you're part of Facebook or you're part of Instagram, you know, and you're looking through interesting content, the minimum number of clicks to purchase or one-touch checkout significantly reduces abandoned cart rates. How do social media platforms build stronger bonds with users? And how do they turn them into loyal customers? They tap into the content they're already enjoying, the favorite creators they're already following. So Victoria, you're saying that, you know, you said earlier that we're in the middle of this great time of uncertainty, but we're also in this sort of weird position where you're getting the biggest number, you know, the biggest rates of engagement that you've had in a long while. And I think you mentioned that 22,000, you gained 22,000 new followers. So people are active on social media, and people are turning to their favorite creators for education and inspiration, and just to take their minds off things, you know, the horrors outside the front door of COVID-19, and honestly, you know, the horrors inside the front door of living in lockdown with all your loved ones, with your partner, and doing homeschooling as well. So we're turning to influencers to create a diversion and inspiration and education and aspiration as well. So I wanted to, I know I've raced through this a little bit, but I wanted to sort of give an indication of where Instagram and where TikTok is going. So last year, in an interview with the Financial Times, Adam Mosseri, the Instagram CEO, said he wanted to connect the dots thoughtfully. He wanted to connect the dots between shoppers, sellers, and the app's huge number of influencers, and help his 1 billion plus monthly active users to indulge in window shopping. That was in February last year. The month later, he launched, or Instagram launched, Instagram checkout. It's still in beta, but it started off with 26 brands. Now it's got hundreds of brands, and also it is set out shopping for creators. So shopping for influencers allows creators and influencers to tag brand products in their posts, creating a new way of users to go straight into Instagram. So it's a way of keeping people within the ecosystem and going right from discovery to entertainment, to consideration, to purchase. If we look at Blake Chandler here from TikTok, he said a few months ago, if we found that our consumers are engaging with content and they want to buy products within that content, we will enable that as quickly as possible. We will do a single click through for purchases. And he said that a few months ago. And earlier this week, TikTok announced that that the Shop Now button is available to all advertisers. So that was a whistle-stop tour. Are there any? I'm not sure if you have any questions from me, Maria.
No, I think first of all, I want to say that Ellie, that was fantastic, and it's great to get to understand the landscape of the numbers. It's really it just gives you perspective really when you are taking influencer marketing from a brand position, which it was seen previously, into the e-commerce, the opportunity is immense. Ellie did in the comments, Ellie from before, she just wanted to highlight that that's a really good point that you've made. Influencers, she really likes the term community guardian, and it's really interesting, you know, like you said about t-shirts. I don't mind the term influencers, because I think I've always talked about the sphere of influence. But at the same time, I completely appreciate when you kind of look at it from a curated content perspective. So these names, I've also heard the term consultant out there. So, you know, people are really trying to hash out what's the right term.
Well, I think it's an excellent point, and we don't know. You know, it's a young discipline, and you know we're enjoying growth spurts, but we're also suffering from some growing pains as well. And we're trying to develop a language and a shared language, a shared community of practice. And it kind of means different things to different people when you're in our industry. But looking in, we're often just sort of lumped together in one sort of enormous, amorphous blob of Love Island contestants turned to Instagram famous, who aren't subject matter experts, who aren't content creators, but they just got all of a sudden a big spike in interest, and they possibly will sell anything to anybody because they realize they've got a finite shop window. So I've heard influencers, I've heard content creators. Are they social? Are we social publishers? Are we media mastheads of one? 10 years ago, Tom Formsky urged every company to be a media company, and I think the smartphone and faster internet speeds has atomized that idea to everybody. Every person has the ability to be a media company. So we don't know. There are lots of different terms. I'm kind of relaxed about influencer because at least it gets the conversation started. Then we can just gently correct people on what makes more sense.
I totally agree. Although, and I will say, I feel quite strongly that a celebrity is a celebrity, and just because they have huge following on Instagram doesn't make them an influencer. An influencer and content creators, just which name you call, it comes from the same place, creation content and people following them for that. But being famous for Love Island or any movie, there is a separation there, and I think that's quite different. Scott, it's always an absolute joy and a pleasure. Thank you very, very much. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back. We'll kick off exactly at 9:50, and we've got Daphs here, who's the global lead of Inca at Group M. So we'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.
Very much, Maria.
Cheers. Das, hello.
Hi, Maria. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thanks. How are you?
Great, great. I think we're
Good.
like 2 minutes ahead.
Good
How's your
stuff.
morning been?
Very enlightening. Quite the high bar set so far by Victoria and Scott. So I've been listening in, and a couple of really good sessions there, and some really interesting points, which I think we'll pick up upon in some of the discussion that we'll have as well. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Great, good. And actually, there is like one big question that I will kick off with you. And when you look at Scott's presentation, and he's talked about all the numbers, and I think, you know, Group M is the number one media conglomerate. You're Inca. I guess the big question then for me is very much like we really looked at, I call it like the temperature. You test the temperature whenever you look at the spend. At the beginning of COVID, our brand's going to gauge the weather. They're going to spend today, maybe not a little. And then we went from having a juggernaut stop to actually brand spending, not to the same extent, down 20%. Now that we're settling into a new normal, you know, what are you seeing from your side? Yeah,
it's really interesting. And I think the view sort of generally, take ourselves out of influencer marketing for a second. The trends that we've seen have kind of been mirrored across different markets, and obviously markets are in kind of in different stages of the same life cycle as far as the spend in what we're seeing, and it's really travelled generally from east to west and going through the same life cycle. As I said, that life cycle being that spend, obviously when everything kicks off within a market and there's a huge lockdown, spend is paused pretty much across all channels for all clients, and then we start to see some brands come back, starting to spend in some channels, and some brands have a higher propensity to come back and spend across certain types of channels, and others obviously remain paused, and some channels remain paused as well. And that's we've kind of been through that life cycle very much, or every market's still within that life cycle, but certainly China was the first, and other Far East markets, and then it kind of looked to move westwards. Putting that in context of our industry, I think there's probably good news and bad news. The good news is that I think influencer marketing has started to bounce back somewhat, and has been one of the channels that hasn't been as badly affected, but probably not as springy as we'd say maybe a paid social as a channel. So that's probably the good news. The not so good news, or the challenging news at the moment, is that some of the industries that tend to index quite highly for influencer marketing spend are yet to kind of see that bounce back. So obviously your travel sectors, some of your beauty sectors as well. Automotive, I'd probably put into that category as well. So a mixed bag, some good, some bad, but every market seems to be in this somewhere along the spectrum.
Amazing. It's good to get your insight, because I think, you know, we need the economy to keep spinning for everybody to basically put food on the table. So that's the big thing. Would you say could you give us any insight into any brands, or is that really a tough question to ask?
No, I think putting food on the table quite literally is quite a good quite a good phrase there, because we're seeing very much FMCG clients being fairly resilient in this market. Victoria gave a really great example of some work that she's done with Betty Crocker, I think it was, that she cited, and similar sorts of brands I think are kind of taking this as an opportunity for a couple of things. I think first of all, really trying to put the messages within the context of everything that's going on. And for me, there is no better channel to do that than influencer marketing, or working with creators to do that, because no one understands what individuals are going through better than actual individuals who are using products. So FMCG for me has been one of those sectors that's been really resilient, and has really embraced influencer marketing as a channel, and really lent into it a lot more. I think part of that comes down to the ability to quickly create relevant content. Messaging changes from, it seems like a lifetime ago, but I think it was only 4 weeks ago when we were running a campaign around safe hands with the World Health Organization. the message has probably changed 2 or 3 times since then, only in the space of 4 to 5 weeks. So
yeah, actually, this is a really interesting one that I was going to come on to, actually. It's just like, and I think I mentioned in the very beginning, that thing about, it feels like a short time ago, but everything has changed. And are you seeing that across the board with everything? From a messaging perspective?
Well, so absolutely, in terms of being cognizant of what's going on, but not necessarily changing the whole brand planning, for instance. I think things like, if the core message of a brand would be around maybe food and beverage and how you enjoy it in the home, that's still relevant. So from that point of view, it's not a whole step change in what brands are asking creators to do. But the subtle difference is to put it in the context of the new family lifestyle and the new normal, if you like, that you mentioned earlier on. So less so a complete step change in the campaigns and what brands are trying to get out of the campaigns, but putting it in the context of what everyone's going through.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think we've seen that as well. Just like I've seen that across the board, just the safe hands messaging was prevalent across everything that we were seeing. And just that the change now. And I think when we were talking previously, you were talking about some tactical work brands were doing, but also, and I alluded to it in my chat earlier, there's a lot of the messaging now today, it's kind of still relevant to what was previously when you talk about FMCGs. Absolutely. So, we moved on from safe hands. Is there more tactical work that you're seeing across the board?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, and it kind of comes, and it's very client centric. Some clients will lean in massively. Others will take a more sort of cautious approach, if you like. But in terms of the value and the messaging, what brands are, or what I'm seeing with brands, is certainly the value of being able to quickly create really relevant content and being able to distribute that as efficiently as possible. Then it's almost looking at influencers in a new light, and the value proposition's really been brought to bear. And I think, like the old adage of sort of necessity being the mother of invention, or innovation in this case, is something that we're seeing as well. And brands are really thinking, well, maybe I can use influencers for more of an e-commerce type play, if that's the route that they want to go down. That's something that obviously Scott touched upon earlier on. So we're seeing brands really explore the opportunities that influencer marketing brings.
That's great. It's great. What are your thoughts then on brands who influence, and like in terms of altruistic work or changing messages? Yeah.
So again, you'll see some brands that really want to put out their social message out into the world, and that's great. You look at the bigger brands like your Nikes of the world, who really want to play in that space, and that's absolutely superb for them. And they will do that across a whole advertising campaign, not just the influencer side. But it's really where you ram home the messaging there is by using social influencers. We're seeing almost every brand come to us and saying that they want to do something around this. They're just not sure what. And being sensitive to the time. There's a lot of nervousness out there around getting something wrong. So really understanding the right tone to hit, and the right messages to put out there is something that we're seeing as brands leaning into influencers and creators more on a consultative level and saying, well, what do you think your audience would like, and what would resonate well with what you're seeing on the ground? So that consultative angle is coming through as well.
That's actually really great for you as an agency. What percentage, can you give like a gauge on what percentage of clients will be looking for that? Is that like, because I actually think whenever I talk to a lot of, and actually I think we will cover it a bit in a while when we talk to the guys in news at the 5th, but do you feel that there's a higher percentage of clients now looking for that consultative approach with influencer marketing?
I think across the board, that as the industry matures, Scott talked about the growing pains that we're kind of going through. I think influencer marketing was seen as a almost almost an addition to an established media plan, whereas now influencer marketing would be more of a staple on a media plan. But what comes with that is that, you know, if you buy into the trust and the relationship that influencers have with their audiences, then I think you also buy into the fact that influencers really understand what works and what works well. And bringing on board more and more influencers as consultants, then I think is something that we see from the brands that tend to be further along in working with influencers. You can imagine bigger brands kind of reaching out to Victoria, for instance, to get her take on what should be done, on what message resonate really well. So I see more and more brands leaning into that, and I guess our role is to be able to put the brands and the influencers together and just almost create that community.
That's great. And actually, to your point, I feel like we're seeing an igniting or combustion of influencer marketing. And then, like, at this time where brand values are being aligned with influencers like never before, and influencers creating beautiful content, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on how we make the content work harder when looking at the wider digital landscape? Yeah,
this is a really interesting question, and one that we sort of at Inca have kind of been considering for a long time, obviously as part of a wider agency group, understanding how we can sort of create content and the best type of content that really speaks to audiences. I think a challenge that the industry has had that we're looking to address is there's so much value in the content that's being created. We see that in the engagement rates. We see that in how the engagement rates that Victoria talked about, and also the trust that Scott talked about in his previous presentation as well. That authenticity and that trust, I think, is proven out in the industry. I think one thing that we're still missing, the question mark that still remains, is scale. How do we get that unbelievable content that people do lean into and do really trust? How do we get that out in front of as many people as possible? And that's something that we're considering at the moment, is how do we bring that scale to the content that's being created? So for me, it's making sure that we can reach as many relevant consumers, potential consumers, customers, and audiences with the great content that the creators are bringing into market at such pace as well. So, and if we can crack that challenge, then it makes the next evolution, the e-commerce side of influencer marketing, much more realistic, and using influencer content to drive e-commerce. That's the bridge that we're looking to that's the gap that we're looking to bridge at the moment.
That's really exciting. You know, I've been in this space for the last 4 years, and kind of when you can see the value of it and the numbers that that Scott's pointed out, but actually when we look at, you know, when we know that the Gen Zs are buying from influencers more, and we know the trust, and we know the fine line between hashtag ad and getting the message, you know, it is the challenge. But when it's done right, you know, it's going to be big. So it's interesting when you know, you look at that, you're looking at the wider landscape of how it's going to be used as well.
Absolutely, and the convergence really of traditional influencers, obviously, who are creators or produce content, also publish content, and sort of the coming together of production, publication, creation, social, e-commerce. I see the market converging down that route, and for us as practitioners in this space, I think we're really well placed to be able to dictate how that plays out over the next 6, 12, 18 months.
That's exciting. And you know what I think is like, I think it'd be a real kind shame if the beautiful content from influencer content creators did become so salesy. So I do like the fact that, you know, the consumers and the followers do make them work really hard to get it right. Because, you know, I think the difference between the display world, where, you know, it does feel very, I don't know, you need to bring a lot of love and creativity to create beautiful content, and that's what I love about this space. So,
absolutely, and making that advertising more welcome. I think I may even have just quoted one of the Group M or WPP's ambitions there, but I think it's never more relevant than it is in this space. And creators have got such a way of putting messages across in a subtle but informative way that makes advertising more welcome, I think is certainly the future, not just for influencer marketing, but across the board.
Great. So we're going to be sold to in a very beautiful way. We're going to buy more stuff. The world's going to keep spinning.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, exactly. That's been absolutely brilliant to get your insight, and I think what you guys are doing is really fascinating as always. So I'm looking forward to the big reveal of everything you are doing, because I know there's a lot on the download right now, so I'll be watching in anticipation.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you again for inviting me along today. It's really, really interesting. So good stuff. And looking forward to hearing the other speakers later on. Great.
Well, thanks a million. And Elliot, welcome.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. You can see that I've got my hat on. I can't put everyone through seeing my hair at the moment. It's so long, it needs a cut. So the hat's staying firmly on.
I've become a hairdresser at the moment. So yeah, you have to send you, if somebody in your house videos, YouTube's how to cut hair.
Exactly.
There, congratulations, strategic advisor, new clients, which is brilliant. And you know, I think a sale happening right now in COVID is really, really interesting. But the Hook Labs, I know you've been strategic and instrumental in building it, and you've done this amazing job. So well done on the success of Hook Labs, and long may their success continue with Braised Bison. Yeah, so.
Cheers. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to share this. Actually, it's been a long time since I presented this specific proposition that we did. So I'm just trying to share my screen. Hang on, everything's gone a bit slow.
That's right.
Can you see that?
Great, yes. Well, I'll hand over to you. I mean, we've chatted quite a bit about what you're doing, and I just think it's going to be a real treat to get for people to hear from your perspective how you look at influencer marketing and behavioral targeting. And I think that's a really key thing for a lot of people in this that aren't in influencer marketing space. It's kind of said that to some of the different people in my network. Even if you're working influencer marketing, understanding from your perspective is going to be really good for them. So anyway, I'll hand over to you. Cheers.
Thanks. Some really good points actually what the guys have picked up on. There's so many different types of influencer marketing that you can actually do, and different types of content marketing as well. Just to give you a broad overview of the types of things that we created in our time with the Hook Labs, on the Hook rather. So the content arm of the business essentially is creating all different types of content, being a social marketing agency. That could be adverts, it could be hero content for the brand, it could be branded content that we would put out on the Hook, or we would put out on other social channels. And then we're sort of moving into influencer marketing as well. We've done lots of different types of influencer marketing, sort of with big influencers, all the way down to micro influencers, and sort of trialing them and testing them to see what works best from a paid commerce perspective. We used to run an e-commerce business as well previously that we were trialing influencers with as well, and that worked really, really well. But a lot of those learnings sort of pushed us down the route of working with brands to try and drive return on investment and try and drive return on ad spend as well. The types of things that, the reason why we were doing performance marketing, so this was born out of, again, lots of different types of campaigns that we were working for with startup businesses in the UK. There were social-ready brands, essentially. They weren't particularly big companies to start with, but those types of brands need return on ad spend immediately, right? And we were trying to find the best possible route in to try and get that. So traditional influencer marketing wasn't quite working for them. They were sort of chucking a lot of money at influencers to create videos, excuse me, getting some good videos back, but they weren't necessarily seeing the traffic going through to their website in order to actually try and push people down the conversion funnels. And what we found specifically was if the product's price point was anything outside of sort of £30, it was quite hard to shift people's mindset into actually trying to buy a product immediately. So we were looking for products and businesses to work with where their brands were sort of around £5 to £30. also equally, this sort of is quite an obvious thing to say, but if the product is a really, really useful product to the audience, they don't mind being targeted with good copy. That may sound a bit silly, but I think you get a lot of brands that assume that people want to see their products, and they want to watch their favorite influencer advertise that product. That's not always the case. Really, the product needs to be useful in most instances, and if it is, and you can bring that out in the copy and with the video that you're creating, you're going to get much better results. What we found also was, because we were working with startup businesses, if we got to them at the inception of the way that they were building their landing pages, or the types of language that they were using, we could position them a lot better within the influencer marketing copy that we were creating. And again, that would have a much better effect. Sometimes we worked with a few brands that were a bit stuck in their ways with the way that they wanted their user journey to sit, and it just wasn't backing out, and it was basically just like chucking money down the drain. So we got very, very good at that, and I'll come on to the actual example with Voxy in a second. But another thing was helping with pricing structures. A lot of the time brands, some of these startup businesses were, again, very rigid with their pricing structures of what they wanted to sell and how they wanted to sell it. But sometimes if you, as a lot of you guys on e-commerce will know, if you bundle things up in a specific manner where the price is a little bit more favourable for the customer, people tend to buy that a little bit more. The other thing was for talking to the startup businesses, setting achievable metrics and achievable cost per acquisitions. You don't always get the bang on right information, and you have to do a bit of guesswork in between. But ultimately, everybody needs to win out of this. So you need to set achievable cost per acquisitions, and they need to be honest about where they're at in terms of what they're selling and what's actually working for them as well. Creating the narrative is something, again, going back to getting to them at the inception of when the brand was launched. It's very, very important for the videos that you're creating with influencers. Again, we're not talking about particularly long videos here. We're talking about short, sharp, very direct call to action videos that could be 30 seconds up to sort of a minute long. So getting that narrative right in there is really, really important. And again, of course, being an influence marketing agency and a social marketing agency, we choose creators and influencers with the correct metrics in mind. Excuse me. So this is a broad basis of how we would look at most of our campaigns, not just performance campaigns. As you can see, Voxy in the middle there. Voxy, if anyone that doesn't know, is Vodafone's slightly younger brand. It's open to everyone now, but it's SIM cards essentially. So at the heart of everything needs to be the brand whenever you're setting out one of these campaigns. And once you've got the narrative, once you've got the influencers, once you know what content you're actually going to create, it's then a case of working out where you're going to put it. And of course, when we had the hook, we had around 14 million followers across multiple different platforms. So any content that we created, if it wasn't influencer marketing to start with, we would put it out on those media channels. Then we'd go to the next layer to reinforce that overall message with influencers and create separate videos. And then on top of that, we had tons of different pages all across the world with a network of around 1 billion views per month. So those 3 layers, essentially, or 4 layers, if you're working back from from Voxy's social pages as well, that really gave a really good hub to well, set you up for success, if you like, to try and reach the goals that you need. And in performance standpoint, that is sales, of course. Whoops. Hang on, let's go back. There we go, I'm freezing. Right, to give you an idea of what that content cycle for influencers specifically would look like, I've used Max Whitlock on the left-hand side here as an example. Obviously, Max is a Olympic champion. He's not the biggest in terms of being an influencer. He wouldn't necessarily what Victoria might necessarily call a creator per se. He's more of a well, he's a sports star, obviously. He's talent, but he is moving into the realm of creating more and more videos on social. He's now got a TikTok channel as well, I think. He's the type of influencer that we've been looking for to create videos for us. Also people like from Geordie Shore or The Only Way is Essex, or those types of people work very, very well as influencers specifically. But what you're looking for, what we were looking for specifically for this campaign on Voxy, was people that had good engagement, people that we thought we could create videos with, whether or not that be on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, wherever their audience was. And we thought that we could generate sales out of them. So the first part over here on the left-hand side, where you've got video creation, that's your signaling content. So that's your 30-second to minute-long video that we were creating. Out of that, we were creating 3 cut downs with different call to actions on them. And those cut downs then moved into the retargeting, where we would create custom audiences. And the more that you work with the brand, obviously, the more that you knew about the audiences that you were targeting. So you could retarget those ones or create lookalike audiences. And we'd hit them at different points in the day. That obviously moved into sort of a PPC campaign. And that paid media was driving tens of thousands of clicks over the period of the first 6 months of the campaign. And the performance really spoke for itself. There's obviously some brands that work for this and some brands that don't. When we were working with Voxy, you've got to remember with Voxy, when it first started back in the day, and we were there pretty much at the inception of it, it was a very, very useful product. It was a product for young people under 25s, basically, that could access lots of data, free social media. You got a free SIM card with it as well, and lots of extras on top of it. So to be promoted something like that is very, very useful for that audience. That led to high performance on the overall campaign. And as you can see, can you see that? I'm not sure we can see that.
Yeah, we can see it.
What it meant was we scaled SIM cards. Initially, the campaign started out in a test campaign. It was very, very small. It was like £10,000, something like that. But we generated like 250 sign-ups with that £10,000, which was just incredible. That turned into a longer term deal. They ended up being our best partners, still is my best partner. Love working with them down there. They're very open to ideas and let us run with the campaign and really let us do what we needed to do in order to get to success. And we ended up generating 1,000 new customers per month. And over the course of the campaign to date, we've generated over 350 million impressions to date, which is pretty incredible, considering we're not necessarily going after views and engagement. We're going after clicks and going after sales, a good cost per acquisition. But we drove that cost per acquisition down by over 16%, ended up being their, still are their number one partner outside of comparison sites, which for us was a pretty big deal, being a small company and working with such a huge company like Vodafone. Being their best partner outside of any of the comparison sites was pretty incredible. And as you can see at the bottom, we won some top awards for it as well. Performance Marketing Awards was the first ever influencer Performance Marketing Award won. So we're very proud to have worked on this campaign, worked with the guys down there, and continue to try and scale for success. That's it overall. I have got a video, Maria, if you'd like to see it. It's a very, very old one. I don't know if we've got time, have we? We
have run out. How long is it?
It's a couple of minutes. Don't worry, I can share it on afterwards if you like. And
yeah, if you stick around, can we do that after Lauren? It'd be great to share it.
No problem.
And I think the big thing for me with this is just like integrating, like for the client, work that closely with a client for them to let you use their data, and that it just changes the whole landscape to do this amazing work that you've done. So well done. And to your point, winning the performance awards is fantastic with the influencer campaign. So well done.
Thanks a lot.
Great. We'll chat to you at the end.
Thanks, Maria.
Thanks, Elliot. Hi, Ollie and Rachel. How are you both?
Hello. Hey, Maria. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Really, really
Excellent.
good. Looking forward to our chat today.
Me too.
Yeah, there's been some really great content so far, and I'm actually really excited about because it feels like each conversation kind of leads to the next one. And I'm going to dive straight into the questions because we're a little bit tight on time. And Rachel, I'm going to actually kick off with you because I'm chatting with the both of you guys, and I just feel leading on from the last conversation we've just had. Something that you said, Rachel, that really resonates with me is you said the future has fast forward. Can you take me through that, because it's how you talk about social commerce?
Yeah, I think so. So hi, good morning. Can you hear me? Just to make sure. I never know. Cool. So firstly, thank you for having me as part of the webinar. I'm excited to talk through the questions and discuss. But yes, so I mean, I think without question, the future has been fast forwarded by this pandemic in every possible way. And you can see it across society. I mean, path that we'd maybe taken kind of tentative steps towards in terms of, I don't know, cashless society, 5G, flexible working, just in a very broad sense, we have very much expedited our journey through. And I think that is particularly true within our industry. I think one of the wins of the situation has been the innovation and the creativity that we've seen from brands in terms of their communication strategy, how they've translated their events online, virtual press days, fashion shows, all of these things. And I think taking that right back to social media, which has made much of this possible, and influencer marketing, what I am very pleased to see is a much higher appreciation and understanding of influencer marketing as a legitimate marketing channel. I very much hope it's moved away from this idea of, you know, all influencers are people from Love Island and have no skill, and they're just pretty girls that go to parties. And they see that actually, you know, firstly, that's not the case, but secondly, it's a strategic discipline that is converging with social commerce, i.e. influencers, your social media platforms are huge traffic drivers to your online site and to your e-commerce, which for many businesses is their only channel currently to sell direct to their consumers. But more than that, it's being understood as a strategic discipline. And I think a lot of this kind of move towards social commerce and reevaluating the importance really plays very much into what Instagram want us to be doing in this space anyway, and the business model that they're trying to follow. And I think what they're largely trying to do as far as they can in the Western world is copy the blueprint that WeChat in China set up, whereby they develop their app to such a state that it is now an ecosystem that you live your life in. It is your main shopping channel, it is your messaging system, it is your social network. And they've really been able to do that with the facilitation of one-click shopping, which I know Instagram as a checkout are still trialing in the States. And I think we'll see that accelerate too, and it will only be driven further by influencers.
Oh, delightful, absolutely. I'm obviously a big the one-click checkout because I'm always promoting Persollo, but actually I think the social content language is really interesting, and also, you know, really taking influence marketing beyond the brand ambassador, but also the language has also developed in terms of social SEO in influencer marketing. Can you take me through what it means and how you execute a strategy?
Yes, so considering influencer marketing as being sort of beyond a PR strategy, beyond brand ambassadors, I say definitely beyond working with pretty girls that go to parties, we have always tried to educate our clients that they should consider influencer marketing as almost what we have called a social SEO strategy, i.e. in the same way you have an SEO strategy to beat the Google algorithm, and you have links with other platforms that are going to allow you to increase your presence within Google, you need to have a similar strategy within Instagram, which allows you to keep your content, your messaging high in people's feeds and your engagement rate up. And really a lot of that comes from influencers, i.e. working with other platforms that are going to tag you, that are going to link back to you. And if you do that in a very strategic way, where you are working with the right influencer profiles that have the right demographic, the right audience, the right image quality, the right key messaging, all of these factors, is a future-proofing method for your business.
Thank you, Rachel. That's really fascinating. I think you're spot on as well about the data. It's so important. Like I've seen campaigns where, you know, you've got this fabulous girl and she looks beautiful and we had this perfect makeup and but actually it was only guys following her, so that was wasted a few pounds. You know, having the data is really, really important, and understanding a social SEO strategy with influencer marketing is really interesting. Ollie, speaking of the evolution of behaviours online, how does the impact of social commerce for you, and like when you look at what you do, you know, the fifth within the News UK, I'm quite curious about how you see the shopping experience.
I think first and foremost, I agree with Rachel on all of that. It's funny, I've read so many clickbaity articles recently about it being the end of the influencer era, and it's like, no, absolutely not. It may be an end of an era and an component, and actually it's interesting you mentioned Love Island, with that being cancelled obviously next year, that I think what this whole crisis has done is put us forward 2 or 3 leaps in the evolution of influencer marketing, and it's accelerated so many aspects of it, and largely driven by consumer behaviors, as you said, that have changed, and across every metric, whether that's everywhere, and it's well documented, every metric around internet usage, around days of the week, shopping behaviors, massive surges in social, but also increases in impressions against clickable formats, and massive increase in engagement on advertising for influencers. So I think what we're seeing is kind of the acceleration in the social commerce space as a result. The influencer engagement and awareness, and this kind of decrease in potentially some of the mainstream talent and increase in some new and emerging talent, and their role in this has accelerated a few things in social commerce. I think there are initially online social commerce was driven a lot by convenience. It was relatively transient. I think those that were doing it very well, it was very performance led. But I think what brands are realizing now is that they can use influencers as a much broader part in the marketing mix, and use shopping and social commerce for play and exploration. And if anything is shown in this era, that people are searching out entertainment, and if brands can drive entertainment and exploration into that social commerce journey, that's taken us forward 2 or 3 steps, I think, in the shopping experience, and influencers can play a huge role in that, as we've seen. I think the great example, I think, talking influence, documented recently for Levi's, which is a perfect example of that, how they've shifted their program. They've taken advantage of TikTok's new Shop Now program, and they've developed new shopping experiences. I think they created to quote Levi, a laser-powered future finished 3D denim customization technology. I mean, crazy, but actually what they're doing there is using the wealth of that influence, the technology and platforms, and the current climate to drive both brand and performance. And I think that's where it's really interesting and where it can grow. It is how it becomes, social commerce closes the loop and becomes a much bigger part of your campaign strategy.
I think that's really interesting. And you know, it's interesting earlier because there's 2 stats that were kind of almost contradictory, is that the percentage of people who really trust influencers versus, you know, percentage 57% who if it's not done right, it can go really quite wrong. And I think when you look, I really like the evolution of online when you talk about, you know, bringing the behavior experience to the content that's been created, and that's probably how you manage that fine line of having it resonate. But actually, following on from that, where do you see the growth opportunity for social commerce in influencer marketing?
I think it's just continuing on that last point, really. I think that, you know, influencer and social commerce is pretty much a match made in heaven, isn't it? I mean, traditionally it's native. Social commerce is native, it's fast, it can be discoverable in the right place, it can be highly targeted, as pointed out by Elliot, and I think applying paid spend to influencer content is a massive direction of travel. But now you add influence, you now add the evolution of authenticity in this space, and you move away from quite a transient performance-based campaigns, and you encompass it into a much more progressive strategy. So I mean, actually, those that have done it well are the talent themselves. I mean, if you look at the way, I mean, Kim Kardashian was a master at it potentially, but there's plenty of examples. The way that actually you can create brand talent-led brand collaborations, either your own products or with well-established e-commerce and retail outlets. But actually what they're doing is building a brand, they're telling a story, they're building up to launch, and they're threading a much longer term narrative. They're taking their audience on a journey. They're taking it from conception, so starting at mass awareness, and it's bringing them all the way through to that point of sale. And actually it's that journey that I think is been, and the way it's been crafted and the application of those assets across social that have caused products to sell out so quickly, so that you can learn from that, even though they've been doing it for a while, and you can apply that to a much broader strategy mix, which includes more omni-channel. And it includes, as I said, I think starting with the narrative and a story, and thinking about how social commerce can close that loop and when to play it. I think the beauty of influencer marketing, as is being proven now, is that it operates throughout the funnel, and increasingly we're finding ways to manage, to measure brand, but actually it can be done in the same campaign and at different stages using different formats across different platforms. As Daphs points out, really where Group M are clearly heading is how do you apply the principles of real marketing and media and omni-channel marketing strategies to influencer and talent-led content. And I think that social commerce plays a massive part in that. So I think that's really exciting. And I think that in that respect, therefore, you are not just looking at sales as the true measure of how a social commerce strategy plays out. You've got to think about at different touch points in the funnel and different metrics, to measure depth of brand engagement, completions through that step. But what the technologies have done is streamline and accelerate that point of purchase. And I think that's quite phenomenal. And as that evolves and as the technology evolves, some of it will evolve in the platforms themselves, but there's plenty of technology out there to support that user journey.
So I think what's actually really interesting in that as well is you talk about multi-channel and omni-channel, and you mentioned Group M there, but Fifth is an incredible agency that you've built, so really well done there. But it is a part of News UK, so I think is there news that you can share with us now, or is that something we need to watch out for? I'm quite sure you have a strategy there.
I think to be frank, there's more to come, but we were doing it. I think the part of the reason News has invested in us is that we saw this direction travel a year or so ago, and we have the perfect opportunity to help realizing it, being connected to a global media business, omni-channel, with audio, print, TV, broadcast businesses around the world, what you can do. And I think we're seeing it play out now, aren't we? Talent, increasingly this convergence of mainstream and digital first talent in advertising campaigns, in outdoor. And it, as I said, it's another part of the evolution and acceleration we've seen at this time, is the awareness really of influencers and the force for good that can have, and the incredible impact that they can drive for entertainment, for information, and the influence they have. And actually, so what we're going to see is the usage of that content, of that talent-led creative, their production skills being used more in ad creative. And that means connecting it to your above the line strategy, and I think that's what we're doing. That's where I think the industry is headed, and and it's a key component. And so applying paid and media strategies, certainly I think it will be how influencer marketing grows, and that means then it becomes a much broader part of partnerships and the marketing mix, which of course we all want, and it becomes less siloed.
Very, very exciting space. I mean, it does get more and more interesting, does it? So I think what you're doing is really exciting, and I'm looking forward to hearing it all come out. But I've got one more question. I'm going to put it to Rachel. And actually, when, it's interesting speaking with Ollie and the Fifth and the multi-channel, and I really like the perspective of social commerce. But the matter of form is a luxury media agency. So I'd love to know, Rachel, from you, are you seeing your brands adapt to e-commerce strategies within influencer marketing?
Yes. So just to clarify, Matter of Form is a luxury digital branding agency. We're not a media agency, but we do offer a full range of social media services. But yes, so it's actually been really interesting in this time to see how resilient influencer marketing and social media has been, and beyond resilient, actually kind of risen to the top. And just sort of almost by natural selection, and as Ollie said, driven by consumer behaviour, has showcased the value that it offers to brands. And all of our brands have noticed that. all of our clients, almost without exception, are launching any product in a social first, with a social first approach now, supported by influencers. And some who maybe have kind of tested it out before, but were a bit cautious about the approach from a luxury perspective, are really seeing now that actually it works for them too.
That is.
And I think they're seeing that from a sales perspective, of course, but actually what I think they're also realizing more at scale, although I do think has always been the case within the industry. And about 18 months ago, I gave a kind of somewhat controversial talk where I tried to argue that actually luxury brand influencer strategies were more progressive, because they're largely based around storytelling, entertainment, adding value to people's lives, building community, all of those long-term goals. They're not necessarily commercial or sales driven. So, you know, for example, if Aston Martin ran a campaign, they're really not looking to sell out of cars. You know, that would be a disaster for the business. And many of our clients are within that market too, where that's not their goal, but their goal is to engage their community. And
Rachel, well, that's a really, really lovely point, actually. And I think I'd love to I think everything's too short in time, because I'd love to talk to the two of you so much more, and I've got so many questions, but I'm going to have to move on in a second. But I really like that point. I've been controversial, big fan of it, and I think it's a really, really great point.
But yes.
Yeah, no, well, it's a really great point. And, you know, I do love the fact that you talk about, you know, it's the importance of, you know, the branding experience of it, and the fact that the luxury brands are actually really progressive. I think, you know, so yeah, that's a lovely note to finish on. Rachel and Ollie, thank you so much. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thanks for having us.
Cheers.
I look forward to the rest of the sessions.
Thanks.
See you later.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, Lauren. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm good, thank you.
Good. Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. Really good.
Always love
What a joy to talk to you. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, you've been a busy woman the last few weeks, and actually it's been really inspiring to watch from afar, and I just think what you've done has been really powerful for the NHS. Can I dive in and ask you like a question? Is like, how intentional or planned has it been?
Yeah, so over the last few months at MAID, we have been donating lots of furniture and homewares to NHS workers on the front line, and I guess we didn't set out intentionally to work on a project as big as it has been, but from the off, when we all started going into lockdown, I think we all questioned what can we do to help. I think our priority was like, let's try and see where we can help first, and then worry about the kind of other stuff later. So what started as one conversation through a colleague that had a doctor friend in hospital in Cardiff that was saying, actually we realised quite quickly that a lot of the staff areas in hospitals are often incredibly neglected and underfunded, because obviously a lot of the focus goes into patient areas. And we were like, okay, how can we help? And we donated some things like sofa beds and dinnerwares, accessories, cutlery, all sorts. And then that one conversation very quickly snowballed as they started telling their colleagues. Yeah, we've been having some incredibly humbling conversations with doctors and nurses, talking about, you know, they're doing 24-hour shifts and they're having to sleep on the floor with a blanket. And so for us, it was very quickly as a business priority. We wanted to see what we could do to help. So in the last 6 weeks, we have donated, well, we've over 220 orders to 150 hospitals. And each donation is tailored to their requests. So some may be kind of dying for softer furnishings as well, things like lamps, cushions, things to make those rest areas just a little bit more welcoming in a time when breaks and rest time is really short. But whether it was in terms of whether it was intentional or planned, I don't think any of us kind of even 3 months ago could have planned this. But we just knew that we had to prioritize helping people first. Yeah, it's been incredible. And then over in France, we've been donating to care homes, so hospitals in the UK and care homes in France.
It's amazing. I mean, It's just like, it is really doing the right thing, isn't it? And I think, you know,
I think often people talk about brands, but they forget that there's real people behind the brand. And for us, it was really important that we wanted to do what we could help. And you know, I was very fortunate to be able to lead the project and have so many incredible conversations with doctors, nurses, sometimes for like half an hour at a time. We were really lucky that as a business they kind of put the support behind us to be able to do that.
That's just incredible. It's I just continuously inspired. To make it happen the way you did the business have to reorganize how the organization worked? Like to that step change was so quick.
Yes, yeah. So I think we took the time to firstly look at the process and how we were going to do it, and it's really hard to work out a process for something that you don't really know how it's going to go. But we looked at my team, so I head up the influence marketing team, and I think we are quite adept at having those, I guess, negotiations normally with content creators, but in this time doctors and nurses about, okay, what product would work well in their home, or in this case their staff space. So the decision was kind of made for it to be led by our team, and we had incredible support from the merchandising team. So every few days I'd be going to the merchandising director and be like, can we have more stock? Like what have we got in our warehouse that we can donate? Customer service has been incredibly helpful, logistics, our delivery partners. So we very quickly kind of got together a team and prioritized this kind of as a bit of a kind of NHS workforce, I guess.
Really inspired.
It's just a shift of skill set, I guess. So that's best.
Yeah, it was actually using skill set so well as well, isn't it? I mean, it's really inspiring reaction, which really does, in my opinion, need to be acknowledged, and like quite understandable that this has not been the reaction we've seen across the board. What's your kind of thoughts on that in terms of, you know, how you think about, you know, the broader perspective of how people have reacted?
Yeah, I mean, I can look at it from both sides, first as like a marketer and then also a consumer, because it's really hard, whether rightly or wrongly. A lot of brands reacted just super quickly to just want to do something, and I think there was a initial kind of stage of people just trying to flog anything. You know, I know especially with brands like ASOS, I was getting sometimes 2 or 3 notifications a day of different sales, and it was just like, off, like it's just so, at a time when we all like don't really know what's going on, like it's just too many sales messages too quickly. And then I also saw this other wave of kind of brands that were very quick to shout about what they were doing to help the community but hadn't actually done it. And for me that sits really badly when it's like, we're going to do this, it's like, well, just do it and then, you know, talk about it once it's done. But right now the focus shouldn't be you trying to get that kind of PR story. I find that quite distasteful. But I think it can be quite hard to kind of criticize what people are doing, because we are all in this for the first time. I have over the past few weeks I've binge listened to Brené Brown's podcast. If you haven't listened to it, it's oh god, she's amazing. But she I love her,
but I haven't listened to the podcast, so I'm going to.
It's amazing. But she talked about FFTs, which are fucking first times, and how like when we're in a new situation, like we're never going to be perfect the first time. You need to do something to then be able to learn from it. And if you've got no kind of previous experience or something to lean on, then, you know, it's never going to be perfect. So I think we all, as much as it would be really easy to kind of criticize what brands are doing wrong or praise what they're doing right, just kind of be a little bit gentle, I guess, that we're all in this together, and we, you know, we're all kind of, it's a test and learn for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I really like that, FFT. I'm going to apply that. And also I'm a big fan of, you know, actions speak louder than words, and I think you really demonstrated that. And to your point, you know, it's not necessarily about criticising, but maybe just acknowledging and appreciating what has been really good. So I think what you've done and your stories of, you know, the stories that you've mentioned, you know, about the reaction you've got from the doctors and hospitals, and the fact that you're moving on to care homes is really powerful. I just think that means a lot to a lot of people. So, and May.com is now seen, right, so as altruistic brand, and it must be wonderful to be part of that story. Has that developed an advocacy within the business? as this is really, you know, it's really kind of like, this is people's home, you know. So how do you feel working for them?
Personally, it's been probably a career highlight in terms of it's been the most fulfilling project I think I've ever worked on, and also like incredibly emotional. I got sent a thank you video yesterday from Birmingham Women's Hospital, and they sent it to people that had donated to them, and I just started crying because there was a line in it. They were like, "Thank you for standing shoulder to shoulder with us," and I was just like a blubbering mess. So personally, it's been incredible, and I think for the wider business in terms of we've been getting a lot of messages from other employees that are like, we want to be able to do something, we don't know how. So it's incredibly satisfying to know we're working for a brand that are looking to do the right thing and help. And I think there are a lot of us that are feeling a little bit helpless, and what can we do? So from that point of view, it's been amazing. And, you know, we have to recognize that not every brand is in a position to be able to necessarily donate, but, you know, a lot of brands could still be in a position to add value to their community in another way, whether it's inspiring content or something educational. So I think, especially within the business, the kind of employee advocacy for sure. Like I've never been prouder to work for Made.
That's incredible. And, you know, I guess it makes you think, you know, when you mentioned it before, and it really struck with me, you know, when somebody's interviewing, you know, moving forward, I guess the question is going to be, how did you treat your staff during COVID-19? What did you do for the community?
Yeah, I think I've been speaking to quite a lot of friends about this recently, and we're all, I think, noticing more than ever how brands are reacting, and you know, is like, are they offering something back, or are they kind of acknowledging it? Because some brands just are acting like it's not, the world hasn't changed. So I think it's trying to be quite honest and transparent with that audience and say, look, we're all in this together. This is what we can do to help. And I think we'll remember those brands that have given us kind of value in some way. And yeah, equally, like you say, you know, for, you know, future employees, that might be a question, you know, that you ask is like, how did you handle it? What did you do, and how did you treat your staff?
Yeah, I think that's really amazing. I guess, you know, just to summarize it and to finish up, and it's really like, when we look at what Made has done, and you've been part of it, they've really done the right thing. And there's really two parts of that, which it's like I said, like three parts I think that I take out of all of our conversation really is, you know, the reaction you've taken was a moral one. You know, you've donations, stood shoulder to shoulder, which is really quite powerful video you received. And so with the NHS, which is amazing. And what you probably didn't think of at the time, that's definitely going to have come out of this for you, is the long-term relationships people and customers have with you as a brand. And I think that's a really key thing for brands to realize, that customers are us people, and we're building these relationships with the brand. So I think that's powerful. And then the advocacy from inside out that the business has built, it's been incredible to watch.
Thank you. I always think, like I say to the team, like within the work that we do, like relationships is the most important thing. And I think that's the same with customers as well. And yeah, the people that we've been helping. So I hear you, I agree.
Yeah, well, Lauren, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you, and well done. I'm feeling like so happy to get to ask you these questions, and yeah, keep up the amazing work. Keep sharing it with the world. And we would finish up here now, but if for anybody who would like to stay on, Elliot is going to come back, and we're going to get him in, and he's going to show a video to us. Elliot, hello.
Unmute. Now, I should caveat with this video is very old. We didn't actually get a chance to update it recently. This is from like the middle of 2000 and actually I think it's the beginning of 2019, this video, but it gives you an idea of what we were doing. Only 2 seconds.
No problem. You've got a good captive audience, so well done.
Okay. Slightly old, but gives you a flavour for what it was.
Great.
Hopefully, if it plays. Please play.
Hi everyone, hope you're good. Gaz from Geordie Show here. Right, today I need to tell you about a new mobile network called Voxy.
Hi, it's Aaron from Geordie Show here. I'm on the new mobile network, Voxy.
Hi everyone, hope you're good. Gaz from Geordie Show here. Right, today I need to tell you about a new mobile network called Voxy.
There we go. I actually cannot believe how old that is, all the stats on there, but that's kind of gives you a flavour for everything that we were trying to do with that startup brand at the time. And listening to the guys, Ollie and Rachel, and the work that they're doing with trying to develop brands and the brand advocacy and the consideration of brands via influencers as well. That's such important work that you need to do. And this type of work seems a little bit very salesy, but it served a purpose. And it serves the purpose of using specific types of influencers as well. But I totally buy into the creativity of creators, influencers in general, and that work I think certainly lends itself more to even higher performance in general. The types of influencers you saw there, they were used a long time ago, but the bigger or the more creative the influencer, the easier it is to drive the cost per acquisition lower and drive the success of the campaign. So yeah, that's it. That's the video.
Well done. Love it. Thank you. Thank you, Elliot. And I have to say thank you to all of our speakers. It's been an incredible morning. Ellie and Victoria, well done. And thank you. And Scott and Daphs, Rachel and Ollie, Elliot, you and Lauren. Thank you, everybody, and have a lovely rest of the day. Cheers. Bye.